There are lots of things that increase your blood pressure. Some happen at Wembley. Many happen in unexpected places. Around 5 million of us are on pills to calm our pounding blood vessels. But do we all need them? And are the doctors themselves to blame? World in Action, Monday at 8 on ITV.
Now, on this Sunday, July the 7th, the latest world news. This is Granada.
From the studios of ITN, the news with Nicholas Owen.
Good evening, welcome to the programme. The headlines: rising tension between loyalist marchers and police, the latest from Portadown tonight. The unseeded champion, Krajcik's Wimbledon triumph. And safe at last, the round-the-world sailor given up for dead. 2,000 loyalist Orangemen are still locked in a tense standoff with police and soldiers in Northern Ireland. Throughout the day, they've been stopped from marching through a nationalist area of Portadown. The Ulster Unionist leader David Trimble has warned that peace in the province could be jeopardised. Now, Orangemen in some other towns have come out in protest. From Portadown, our island correspondent John Irvine reports.
Tonight, soldiers are on duty in nationalist areas of Portadown in case there's a loyalist backlash to the events at Drumcree, where police Land Rovers have been blocking the road all day. The Orangemen they're impeding say they will stay as long as necessary to get through. The standoff has developed as expected. After their church service, hundreds of Orangemen marched to the police line. The Chief Constable ruled they could go no further because their traditional route would take them through a nationalist estate. The Orangemen believe that's an affront to their religious and civil liberty, and they're determined to march down the road.
We're still waiting, and we expect to be waiting for some time. This is going to be a long one.
There's been some stone throwing, but this was an isolated incident. A single arrest was made. A sizable force has been pitted against the loyalists. There are more than 2,000 police officers here backed up by the army. But the Orangemen have their own reinforcements as well. A short time ago, the latest arrivals were being applauded. John Irvine, ITN, Portadown.
Well, live now too, John Irvine. John, what's going on there now?
Well, Nick, firstly, I hope you can hear me okay. There's a helicopter just above us. What I can tell you is that within the last hour, the crowd here has swollen considerably. And of course, as the number of Orangemen increases, so does the potential for trouble. Hundreds of them will remain here overnight. Correspondingly, so will hundreds of police officers. A short distance from here, a security force base has been turned into a tented village so that the security forces can operate a rota system. Overnight, some police officers will be able to get a bit of rest.
So every sign then that it's going to be a very drawn-out business.
Yes, you heard David Trimble there speak about the long haul. The Orange Order says it is prepared to stay here for as long as it takes. And quite frankly, at this stage, it's very difficult to see a resolution to this one. It probably seems extraordinary to people in Britain that there can be such a dispute over what is little more than half a mile of road. But here it's a highly contentious issue. It's a dispute over territory. Last year, the standoff went on for 3 days. So far this year, it's difficult to see how there won't be a repeat performance.
John Irvine, thank you. War crimes investigators in Bosnia today began their search for evidence of what's claimed to be the conflict's worst atrocity. They'll dig where Bosnian Serb troops are alleged to have killed and buried up to 8,000 Muslims after the fall of Srebrenica a year ago. From there, our foreign news correspondent Paul Davis.
With an escort of American soldiers, the investigators headed into the mountains, where as many as 6,000 Muslim men disappeared 1 year ago this week. The team from The Hague were originally directed here by survivors from Srebrenica, who described mass execution carried out by the victorious Bosnian Serb army. The forensic team has been clearing undergrowth prior to opening the first of 12 confirmed mass burial sites. If hundreds of eyewitness accounts are true, They will, over the coming weeks, uncover evidence of the greatest atrocity committed since the Second World War. It is painstaking work, the intention to locate and exhume every corpse.
We're here to find out how many people are here, as much as possible about those people, and for instance, their sex, their age, the kinds of injuries they may have gotten, the way they died.
These mountain slopes were Bosnia's killing fields. A separate forensic team from Finland has been recovering dozens of bodies left above ground. With the opening of the graves, the enormity of the massacre is about to be revealed. Facilities are now being arranged for thousands of post-mortem operations. It will take at least 3 months to empty all the confirmed mass grave sites, but by that time the investigators believe they will at last know the full horror of the fall of Srebrenica, and prosecutors in The Hague should have the evidence to bring against those they believe to be responsible. Paul Davis, ITN, near Srebrenica.
The Space Shuttle Columbia has returned home from a record-breaking 17-day mission, its longest yet. The 7 crew have been carrying out more research on the effects of space travel on the human body. For the first time, a tiny camera aboard beamed back live television pictures of the shuttle's descent to Cape Canaveral in Florida. The first Wimbledon men's final between 2 unseeded players has been won by the Dutchman Richard Krajicek. He beat America's Mal Washington in straight sets. From Wimbledon, Peter Staunton.
A unique final featuring 2 unseeded players and an unscheduled streaker who took the minds of the finalists away from tennis for a few fleeting seconds. There was no shortage of volunteers to escort her away. Washington offered an encore. He joked later it had destroyed his concentration. In fact, Krajicek never allowed him into the match. The first set went in half an hour of Dutch power play. There were 3 interruptions, but after each one, Krajicek came back and continued the demolition job. In the third set, he won 14 points in a row to go 4-1 up. Washington rallied briefly, and his biggest achievement broke Krajicek's mighty serve. But it was all too late. Holland had its first Grand Slam winner, and Krajicek, first-round loser for the past 2 years, had the biggest title in tennis.
When I did it, I thought, is the match really over? For a split second, I thought, am I making a fool out of myself now by going... It was really but then, yeah, nobody started laughing too much, so I thought I won anyway.
He joins Becker as the only unseeded champion in history. Peter Staunton, ITN Sport, Wimbledon.
Finally, a 70-year-old round-the-world yachtsman is back in his home port of Lymington tonight, 6 months after being given up for dead. Les Powell survived alone on his yacht against all the odds. Our South of England correspondent Robert Hall reports.
It is the first real human contact in more than 6 months.
I said, whatever have you been doing to yourself?
Les Powell's back on dry land after a voyage which was so nearly his last. The former Yachtsman of the Year had set sail from New Zealand last December, but had hit storms en route to his second trip round Cape Horn.
2,000 miles from New Zealand, I was knocked unconscious. I cut the top of my head here and I've lost a lot of blood. And then I was paralysed for the 24 hours, so I was in this gale tied to the mast down below.
Unable to reach land and with his radio out of action, Les sailed on, running desperately low on food.
I thought, well, to hell with it, I've got this far, I'm going to carry on back to England. It meant me cutting down on the food again, so I cut down to 2 spoonfuls of rice a day.
Salvation came with monsoon rains, caught and stored via an improvised funnel. His return astonishing those who'd given up hope.
There I was solitaire and I couldn't believe my eyes. It was like Les returning from the dead.
He wanted to prove he could do something on his own without the sponsorship, and he's done it.
A thinner and wiser Les Powell has sailing in his blood, but for now he's content to relive his adventures until the open sea beckons once more. Robert Hall, ITN, Lymington.
That's it from ITN. Goodbye.
Hello Hello, good evening. Things remain fairly unsettled as we go into the new week, but at least temperatures are on the up, although there will be some patchy rain around, especially in the north. Our Met Office wind flow charts here help explain why. We have a weather front approaching from the west tomorrow, and these northerly to northwesterly winds feeding across the country, tending to peg back those temperatures. Now, come midweek, the winds will have switched direction to come from the west to southwest, dragging up warmer air from the south, and so temperatures are on the up again. Now back to tonight, so most of those showers have now faded away, clear slots inland and temperatures dipping to around about 6 degrees. On to tomorrow morning, most of us go into the morning on a fairly bright note, mainly dry and some sunshine in places. Then during the course of the day, well, that cloud bubbles up in many areas and out to the west, certainly building up here with some patchy rain getting into western places, especially exposed places. We could catch the odd shower on the eastern side of the country. With temperatures on the whole, 18s, 19s, mid-60s in Fahrenheit, cooler in the north and out to the west. As for pollen counts, moderate for most of us, but high in the southwest as well as Northern Ireland. That's all from me. Good night.
Sponsored by PowerGen, producing electricity, whatever the weather.
This is a stand, not for Portadown, but this is a stand for Ulster.
With feelings running increasingly high in Portadown, will the forthcoming 12th of July anniversary end in clashes? Tonight, security forces are on full alert. Tomorrow morning, GMTV is live from Portadown with the latest overnight developments.